ladies and gentlemen. This is Jeff Rains coming again with Foundation of Civilization and Our Changing World. It is that time of week again where I do a quick rundown of the most important stories, or what I find are the most important stories, stories that I can find. What's been happening around the world? How's the Ukraine war going? Why do you think Putin requested the meeting with the United States? And yes, I'm pretty sure it was Putin who pursued the meeting with U.S. President. Why did the U.S. President send National Guard troops into Washington, D.C.? And how are they being received? Well, our world runs on energy, and so that's where I usually start. West Texas Intermediate crude ended the week at $62.80. Brent North Sea crude ended the week at $65.85. And the OPEC baskets ended the week at $67.83. Gold, a measure of how well the banks and nations believe a nation's currency is doing. It ended the week at $3,335.05. Silver ended the week at $38.01. The Baltic Exchange Dry Goods Index, which is a measure of how well people think trade is being conducted, ended the week at $2,055, which was pretty much right in line of where it's been in the past few weeks. U.S. bonds, the 10-year bond ended the week at the U.S. 10-year bond, and make sure you pay attention to the bond, especially the bond sales. The bonds give us an indication of how well a country, its debt is being received. And whenever a sale goes through or doesn't go very well, that's when we need to worry about a country's bonds. So the U.S. 10-year bond ended the week at 4.321%. The UK bond ended the week at 4.699%. And the Japanese bond ended the week at 1.5657%. Where are the U.S. Military assets? Well, quite a few across the world. The naval let me start with the ISR flights that have been going on. Most have been pretty consistent over the past few months and focusing on northern Mexico. And there's a reason why. I will note I'll get into more details in that later, but the ISR flights are continuing to be along the southern border and looking into northern Mexico. And there are a few places out west, western mountains, that they continue to watch. And there are occasionally other places that pop up, but those have been the pretty consistent places lately. In the Navy, we want to keep an eye on where our aircraft carriers are placed. See if any of them might be engaging in some kind of activity. There are 293 ships, which is no change from last week. 100 are deployed, 65 are underway, which is significantly less ships underway than last week, the past, actually almost for the past months, several months or so. USS Abraham Lincoln is off the coast of California, conducting regular exercises. Regular operations. The USS Carl Vinson embarked on a visit to Pearl Harbor on Friday, which was not yesterday, but a week ago. So that would have been the 8th of August. The Dwight D. Eisenhower, last report we had in Norfolk, Virginia. The George H.W. Bush departed Norfolk, Virginia, and then returned on Friday, which would have been last week, the 8th. USS George Washington is operating in the Philippine Sea as part of Exercise Pacific Arsenal. The USS Gerald R. Ford departed Marseille, France on Saturday, which would have been last Saturday, a week ago, the 9th. Stennis is still being overhauled, won't be available till next year. The Nimitz arrived in Bahrain on Sunday for a routine visit. The USS Harry Truman is conducting operations off of the coast of Virginia. Ronald Reagan was last showing at Bremerton, Washington. The Theodore Roosevelt departed San Diego, California on Thursday, which would have been Thursday last week, the 7th of August. And the USS America is operating in the Philippine Sea as part of Exercise Pacific Arsenal. USS Tripoli is in Sasebo, Japan, its home port. No word on the Wasp, and no update on the Iwo Jima. Last we showed it was in Norfolk, Virginia. European markets ended the week at, most of them ended up, actually I think all of them ended up this week. The DAX ended the week at 24,359.30. The FTSE ended the week at 9,142.15. The CAC 40 ended the week at 7,926.09. And the IBEX ended the week at 15,277.2. Prior to the, I don't want to say peace deal, prior to the peace talks in Alaska, Russia was still conducting operations, as was Ukraine. And Russia had this past week has actually achieved its greatest advance on the front lines in Ukraine since 2024. I believe it was a few weeks ago I reported that the Ukrainian president extended the age for people to be able to volunteer for the military up to 60. They're running out of people. Even if they're able to conduct operations and launch strikes and such, they're running low on military age males being able to get in and conduct operations, just regular operations. So they're in dire straits. This week there's been a lot of discussion about how the U.S. president was treating Russia and the Russian president as they started conducting talks in Alaska. A lot of people like to make it very simple and easy when international relationships are anything but simple and easy. Russia, the president of Ukraine was excluded from these talks. And although it was not discussed, I know one of the problems is that Russia does not recognize the current president as the legitimate president of Ukraine since his term ran out, and he has not allowed elections to select someone new. But that aside, it's likely that the Russian president requested these talks because of economic concerns. Russia's economy is geared towards raw material production and of things like oil and metals. They're not geared towards manufacturing like Germany and they're not geared towards agricultural production. The oligarchs of Russia find it easier to maintain their control over the country that way. They stay rich and the people remain under their thumb. But this means that the country is not able to easily reform and retool when needed. Russian banks are also showing financial strains. So it appears that he pushed for these talks to end the war with the Ukraine, or at least get a ceasefire, so they can recover a little bit, recover some of their supplies and economics. The U.S. president claimed nothing was agreed to. Now that the meeting is over, he claimed nothing was agreed to, but I don't believe that. I'm sure that they had some discussions about what was important and what should happen. I believe they did come to an agreement, but he has to present it to NATO and get NATO allies to stop pushing for war. Good luck with that, Mr. President. Over in the UK, 750,000 people have decided they've had enough with the current government, and they've signed a petition for a general election. They're irritated at the economic situation, the violence, the immigration. They're ready for changes. Down in Germany, or across the North Sea in Germany, Germany is struggling through a recession. The new trade agreement with the United States, between the EU and the United States, did not help things at all. And neither their politicians nor their corporate leaders show any willingness to make sweeping policy changes that's needed to reverse course of this recession. Germany's economic data leaves no room for illusion. After contracting 0.9% in 2023 and another 5%, half a percent last year, the decline will continue this year. And it's the sectors that Germany normally relies on that are struggling the most: automobiles, construction, and machinery. They're under the heaviest pressure. Without an artificial boost, again, they're back to standard. I want to say it's Keynesian thinking that the state has to start spending money, but currently the state accounts for half of the GDP. State spending accounts for half the GDP. The private sector is set to shrink 4 to 5% this year. Now, add to this, they have a violence problem, especially with immigrants. It's a stabbing problem, actually. In the first half of 2025, there were 730 cases under the Federal Bureau of Police jurisdiction, which is a 17% increase compared to the same period last year. Out of recorded offenses, 278 involved German suspects and 270 non-Germans. And while foreigners make up just under 15% of Germany's population, they account for 36% of knife crimes. Over in Asia, the Nikkei ended the week at 43,362.56. The SSE index ended the week at 3,723. The Hang Seng index ended the week at 25,285.19. The Sensex ended the week at 80,555.92. And the Nifty 50 ended the week at 24,350.90. In China, annual growth in industrial output slowed to 5.7%. That is, if we can trust those figures. This is from July, it's 5.7% in July and 6.8% in June. This is according to their National Bureau of Statistics. And this is an 8-month low. Investments in factory equipment and other fixed assets rose a meager 1.6% in January through July, compared with 2.8% growth in the first half of last year. And to conclude a story that started several years ago, China's Evergrande, the company, at one time was the largest company in China, and it had a foothold in building homes and construction. It appears that it will be delisted because of debt problems. In a highly publicized incident, China and Philippine ships crashed. Actually, it was primarily just China and China. The two Chinese ships, one of them a Coast Guard vessel and the other one a Chinese Navy destroyer, tried to sandwich in the Philippine ship between the two. The Coast Guard captain pulled some amazing maneuvers and got out of the way, and it ended up the Chinese Coast Guard vessel slammed into the side of the Chinese naval vessel, a destroyer. Further activity in China showed that 3 cutters were sailing near the waters of Manila's northernmost island chain. This prompted the Philippine Coast Guard to track their movements in the Luzon Strait. These cutters were the Hailing, Daho, and Zhongjian. China continues to try to assert control over the area, and their neighbors keep pushing back. Between Pakistan and India, floods have killed a significant number of people. In Pakistan alone, it was 220 people as rescuers are pulling bodies from the landslides in the northwestern district. India had, I believe, an additional 60 people, approximately 60 people, to bring the death toll up to about 280, and that's as of me recording this. The United States has decided it is going to designate the Balok Liberation Army as a foreign terrorist organization, and this is Balok is Balochistan is not exactly a province. It's an area inside Pakistan that believes it should be independent. In the Middle East, the chief of Hezbollah, his name is, and I hope I don't butcher this too badly, Naim Qassem. He's warned the Lebanese government that if they try to disarm Hezbollah, which is the large Shia militia group backed by Iran, then the whole country will suffer destabilization, death, and destruction. So they're pushing back against the Lebanese government plans. In Iran, 20 people were arrested, claimed to be Mossad agents. Again, in the Middle East, Israel has elected to invade Gaza, and it looks like they're getting ready to move the people out of there. One of the places that Israel is looking to settle current Gaza residents is in South Sudan. Now, most people are pretty opposed to this. I don't know how many Gazans are going to be willing to go along with it. We'll find out. And a bit of good news for Africa. Nigeria's federal government partnered with Delisted Nigeria Limited, a Chinese Liankai and China's Liankai Petroleum and Investing Holdings Limited to launch a $60 billion transport and energy initiative. It sounds like they are planning on laying down pipeline and the tracks for a high-speed rail right next to each other. This project covers a 1,600-kilometer high-speed rail and gas network powered by the country's 210 trillion cubic feet of reserves. Nigeria, the government of Nigeria claims that dozens of gang members were killed this past week. This is an early morning operation and they believe that they killed 100 armed gang members in the country's northwest. In a report put out by the International Society for Civil Liberties and Rule of Law, they've noted that in the first 7 months of 2025, jihadist groups have killed 7,087 Christians in various parts of Nigeria. So while Nigeria has a lot of things going for it, they also have a lot of things going against it. In the Americas, the Dow Jones Industrial Average ended the week at 44,985.20. The S&P 500 ended the week at 6,449.68. The Nasdaq ended the week at 21,623.57. In an advancement on the war on cartels, Mexico handed over 26 cartel members to the United States. You remember I told you that they were conducting those ISR flights? I have a feeling that some of the intelligence that they've been gathering has been helpful in them tracking these people down. As far as the foundations of the U.S. market goes, housing starts increases to 4.6% this week and a month-over-month annualized rate. We're looking at 1.321 million in June 2025, which is a rebound from a 9.7% drop in May. Now, in a bit of bad news, U.S. debt has reached $37 trillion. And that is the result of many past presidents, including the current one, and Congress not being able to get together and get their spending straight. Washington, D.C. is a microcosm of the problem with politically motivated city and police management. Leftists are conducting an experiment on the residents of our nation's capital. So how's it going? Well, according to a Gallup poll, 63% of Americans describe the crime problem in the USA as either extremely or very serious, up from 54% when last measured in 2021, and the highest in Gallup's trend. One of the problems is that the police force is authorized 4,000 officers, but they only have 3,100 on the books. They don't have enough officers to engage all the crime being committed. Some residents are complaining of 911 calls that are not being answered. Serious crime is being ignored, property is being damaged, and people are being assaulted, battered, raped, killed. DC's per capita murder rate is one of the highest in the country at 27 per 100,000. Young men that commit crimes, I guess young men and young women for that matter, they're being treated as juveniles until they're 20 years old. They're getting away with very serious crimes, and they're not being held to account for it. National Guard has been sent to D.C. and they're there to support the police and protect national parks property. The mayor of Washington D.C. was forced to end the sanctuary city status, or at least end the practices. The sanctuary city status limited local police from working with federal police on immigration matters. Now, earlier this week in Austin, Texas, at a Target, there was a shooting, and the shooter seems to be very disturbed. Less than an hour after the initial reports, police found the 32-year-old naked and holding a Bible. And according to the reports here, the shooter said, "I have a confession to make. I killed a man and a baby girl tonight in the Target parking lot." Nineker allegedly told police, and I quote again, "I shot them both because I'm Jesus." And in a report coming out of Portland, dysfunction is on full display in Portland as a property owner sells his last property at a significant loss as he sees how poorly the city takes care of regular citizens, property owners in his case. His last property was broken into by homeless drug addicts. They trashed the place. They ended up setting fire to different places he was able to get it put out. The city would not protect the property and actually fined him for not keeping the property clean. When he said, or when he paid the fine, the city claimed that they lost the check. They sent him another bill and acted like they never got the first one. So he paid the fine the second time with another $100. The first fine was about $520, $30, I believe. Anyway, he challenged them, and finally the city admitted that they had problems and the property did not owe any money to the city because of fines. A plan has been put into place to have 600 soldiers as a quick reaction force, domestic civil disturbance quick reaction force, composed of hundreds of National Guard troops tasked with rapidly deploying into American cities facing protest or other unrest. The plan calls for 600 troops to be on standby at all times, and there would be a group of 300 stationed at military bases in Alabama and another 300 in Arizona. New Yorkers are expressing their opinions, or at least a few of them are. Unfortunately, many New Yorkers remain apathetic towards politics and have allowed an avowed communist and anti-capitalist to run away with the New York mayor's race. The the candidate, which is far ahead of the next three candidates, wants to end the police force. He plans on taking property and demanding that building owners never raise rent. He wants the government to own some of this property and give it out to low-income workers. And he's also proposing government-owned grocery stores. And we have an example of one of those in Missouri. It's closing down because it can't sustain itself. The problem is that giving power over so much of citizens' lives is never a good idea. Even if you can trust the people implementing the plans, they're only a bad disease or an assassination away from someone else seizing that power and turning it against the people. Anyone with any sense has already fled New York before they can turn it completely communist. The last story that I want to cover, and I don't think anybody can emphasize this enough, it is the continuing revelations that we get from the Russiagate investigation. Now, all of these Gate investigations or Gate incidents or whatever harken back to the Watergate break-in. And that's where a group of spies that were associated with then President Nixon broke in and tried to plant bugs and steal information from the Democrats. Then, when it was revealed what was going on, and there's a lot of question as to who, what, where, why, and how on those revelations, the then president tried to protect his people, and they he claimed things were not going on that were. There was a lot of information that was available, which showed that he was not being honest with the American people. So the president was encouraged to resign, and he did. This week, what happened was that a burn bag was discovered with material that covered the investigation into the current U.S. president and his involvement with Russia. Now, no investigation has ever made any connection between the current president and Russia, aside from the diplomatic meetings that we just witnessed, like the one we just witnessed in Alaska. Now we're finding out that a whistleblower has come forward, and he was a veteran career intelligence officer. He spent more than a decade with the Democrats on the House Intelligence Committee. He repeatedly warned the FBI, beginning in 2017, that a congressman from, well, now he's a senator from California, had personally approved leaking classified information to smear the then president over our now debunked Russia hoax. The whistleblower was told they didn't need to worry about it, that they wouldn't get caught. All of this came about because a candidate, the 2006 Democrat candidate, had been caught. She was taking classified information and putting it on her unsecured server at home. Now, who was accessing it after that? Well, we know there were 5 countries that got into it. We don't know exactly how. Now, there's a lot of speculation as to the what, where, whys, and hows. Actually, it's the why that is so deeply concerning. Many of these people, it's believed, or many of these countries, it's believed, were taking the information and they were making contributions to a foundation by the candidate maintained. We have tons of evidence that there was collusion to work against a sitting U.S. president. There's none to support that the president had done anything wrong with any other nations. There's zero right now. This one political party believed that they were above the law and that they were able to push any narrative they wanted. The media, unfortunately, was complicit and did not push back on any of these investigations and asked for more details. The information was classified so that nobody could find it, and in fact, when this was brought before the Senate, they all said, well, yeah, we've got to investigate this. We've got some serious charges. We need to find out what's going on. But they weren't privy to any of these details that the whistleblowers had warned the politicians that this was illegal. Just as we could not continue with a president that was protecting spies working against his political enemies, we can't do it today either. And the people who perpetrated this on the American people, they need to be held to account. And I sincerely hope that they are. This is just one of those things that we've got to get to the bottom of. And we've got to straighten out so that our political system can continue. Transparency is one of the keys, and representation is another key. I'm going to try to cover some more of this in the near future as I have a couple of minutes available. I hope that you guys are doing well, and this pretty much wraps up what I have seen going on this week. I'm sure that we will have new surprises next week. We continue to have new trade deals. We continue to have changing economic circumstances across the world. And we can unfortunately continue to have violence unfolding across the United States. Please go spend some time with your family. Like, share, and subscribe this. I greatly appreciate your help. And I hope that you guys, like I said, are doing well, and hope to see you guys again very soon. Love talking to you guys, and like I often say that this is my addiction, bringing you news that's worthwhile and letting you know what's really going on out there, and trying to give you some insight in where I think that things are going. Much love, and I will look forward to talking to you guys again very soon. Thanks again. Have a great rest of your weekend.